Those my fingers again, but thank you very much, Mr. Liu, for your questioning. And it's certainly my privilege now to yield to another important distinguished member of this whole body, and that is Mr. Cohen of Tennessee. Mr. Cohen of Tennessee, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for holding this hearing. If I ask any questions that have been asked earlier, Mr. Carvajal, let me know. I've been at a hearing of the Helsinki Commission. We had the Polish foreign minister, and been very involved in those issues. These are important issues as well, and I wanted to make this hearing, and I'm happy I can. The pandemic has highlighted many of the failings of our federal prison system, and the Bureau of Prisons has unfortunately failed to protect the health of those within their custody and their staff from COVID-19 or address chronic understaffing. The BOP has also lacked transparency and vigor in implementing important criminal justice reforms, such as the First Step Act, Mr. Carvajal. What lessons have you learned during your tenure, and what advice do you have for your successor to address some of these issues that we've seen within the Bureau of Prisons? Mr. Carvajal?
Congressman, yeah, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Trying to unmute here. Well, if you're asking about the lessons learned from the pandemic, first off, we followed CDC guidance from day one. We learned that we need to protect the most vulnerable, the elderly, isolate the sick, quarantine the exposed, the same lessons that the rest of the country and the world have known: restrict movement, communicate better. Those are some of the lessons learned. And I think that we've got good processes in place. We work with the CDC. We've invited them into our institutions. They have visited us, and our pandemic plan is worked in collaboration with the CDC.
Well, let me ask you about the First Step Act. That was one of the few successes Mr. Trump had, that and the Operation Warp Speed. That seemed like it should have been pursued with vigor, and it wasn't. Why was First Step Act in trying to get individuals that should be eligible for release, not Operation Warp Speed for the Bureau of Prisons?
Congressman, I'm not sure I know what you're referring to. We are fully compliant, statutory compliant with the First Step Act, and we had implemented a risk and needs assessment way ahead of the time it was due. We formalized it. We've released inmates under the First Step Act. They're earning time credits. I'm not certain what you're referring to.
Was there a date late January that you needed to have a certain report in on folks that would be eligible for release? Maybe you got it done. I don't know, but at one point it wasn't done.
Well, we were awaiting the finalization of the rule of the process, which I don't control. We submitted that draft rule under the last administration at the end of January 20, and it was finalized in January. We are statutorily compliant with the First Step Act, Congressman.
Excellent. Well, that's good. I led a letter along with Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman to the Biden administration, urging them to avoid the reincarceration of those released to home confinement under the CARES Act, allowing those released to apply for commutations of their sentences. In your view, was home confinement under the CARES Act successful, number one? And do you agree that those released have largely proven their ability to successfully assimilate back into their homes, families, and communities?
Congressman, we're always committed to returning people to society. 95% of our people will go. We understand and support the CARES Act. We've done so. We've released over 37,000 to home confinement, 9,000 of those under the CARES Act. Only 320 of those have reoffended, and we follow the statute and the rules. So we follow the laws that are implemented, and we continue to do so.
The Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel published a memorandum concluding that the Bureau of Prisons was not required to return those released to home confinement under the CARES Act to prison once the emergency period ended. But has the Bureau of Prisons, under your guidance, begun taking steps to effectuate the Department of Justice memorandum and new interpretation of the law so that the people that were on home confinement would be able to remain on home confinement and apply for commutations?
Yes, Congressman, I'm aware of the OLC opinion. We're working with the department. We have not nailed down the how. When we do that, we will make it, we will be as transparent as possible to make sure that everyone gets the information. But we certainly take the information and guidance of the Attorney General. Will continue to follow the laws.
Thank you, sir. Let me ask you this. You were the head of the Bureau of Prisons, were you not, when Mr. Epstein allegedly committed suicide?
No, I was not, Congressman.
You weren't? Okay. You were there, though, when Michael Cohen was arrested and brought back and put in solitary confinement when he tried to exercise his First Amendment rights, were you not?
I believe that did happen under my tour, yes.
Were you asked, did you have anything to do with that? Were you made aware of it? The desire to have him brought back into custody and put in solitary confinement?
No, Congressman, I was not made aware of that prior to. I was briefed on it afterwards because he's a high publicity case, as any high publicity, but I was not directly involved in that decision.
Well, thank you. Based on last question, Madam Chair, since Mr. Epstein committed suicide and the security there was awful, have you seen to it that Miss Maxwell's got better care or supervision to make sure she doesn't do anything to end her life?
I'll let the director answer the question. The
Thank you.
gentleman's time has expired. Director, may I answer?
Yes, Congressman. I don't want to discuss specific security issues on any individual, but we appropriately ensure that people in our care have the appropriate supervision and security.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. This has been